Welcome to one of the first videos for my little channel. This is going to be about the modifications that I've done to my motorcycle. In this case, this is a 2008 Yamaha WR250R. I bought in February of 2016, so I've had it 4 years. 4 years next month. This is January right now. I'm short. So I'm only 5'8". This bike is a little tall. So one of the very first things I did was to try and lower it a little bit. And so what I did, I actually bought a lowering link for it and put it on. I didn't like it though. I mean, it didn't seem to make that much of a difference, and I didn't like the fact that it was going to be changing the geometry as much as it did. So what I did is I took that back off and I lowered the rear shock in the bracket, which gives me about a ½ an inch. And then I raised the forks here an equivalent amount. And then the very next thing I did was I bought this, which is a Seat Concepts low seat. It gives me about another 3/4 of an inch or so. So all told, I get about an inch and a quarter, maybe an inch and a half, which doesn't sound like much, but you know, every little bit counts. But really the main thing with the seat is that it's just way more comfortable. I mean, goodness, the stock seat is sort of a 2x4 wrapped in foam. This is way more comfortable and has been an awesome, it was one of the most, it was probably the best mod I did, was just making the seat more comfortable. So I'll go around the bike and talk about a few of the other things. Obviously what you can see right here, these are takedown mirrors, which most people that are riding dual sport or adventure type touring use these. They're great. They use a ram mount, which means I can fold them out of the way like that, which is great. When I decide to get on a single track trail, I can get them out of the way. If they get hit, all they do is they fold. They're just awesome. One of the best, another good purchase. They're not cheap, but they're a really good purchase. Those are mounted on a set of Pro Taper Trials High bars. Now my brother had bought these bars. He was going through a series of I can't get the right handlebars for my bike. And he ended up going through a bunch of them and had these set left over. Well, it's perfect for me. It gives a little bit of a rise, a little bit higher than the stock, and they're certainly better manufactured. So I really like them. Other things I've done, the service hand guards, those have come in handy. I've actually broke this bolt once because I fell on rock and it snapped the bolt, but it protected my brake lever, and in the other times when I've fallen on the left side, the clutch lever. So well worth it. I just wouldn't have a bike without them. Still staying up front here, one of the other things I've done is I have installed a powerlit 12-volt outlet. A lot of bikes you'll find will have like a cigarette lighter type of outlet. The problem with that is that vibration will just have the thing pop right out, and that happened to me on one of my street bikes I had. And so I noticed that BMWs use a different type of socket, and Powerlit, which is a company you can find online, powerlit.com, makes all sorts of different types of sockets. And so I've mounted one here. I have it wired into the harness down below the seat. I have it on on a switched circuit, meaning that when the key is off, there's no power to it. Now some people like to keep those on. I like them off because I don't want to drain my battery. I've done that once before. In fact, I hadn't had the bike more than a couple of months, and I was out riding with a friend of mine and stopped to chat for a minute, hit the kill switch instead of the turn the key, and in 10-15 minutes my battery was dead. Now granted, yes, I probably needed a new battery, but I think it's just safe in the long run. Keep protection of your one power source, because this is a fuel injected bike. That battery has to be up. Without a battery, this thing will not run because the computer controlled fuel injection. So that's a must. Still up front here, I have an IMS 3-gallon tank. I think it's actually 3.1 gallons. So that takes it up from the 2-gallon. Again, these bikes will get 60 to 70 miles per gallon from what I've been led to understand. 2 gallons isn't very much. 3 gives me, a good 150 miles of dirt type riding. Now, if I was on the highway, obviously that would probably stretch out to 180, maybe even 200 miles if I was really getting good mileage. But so the 3 gallons to me is just like a minimum. It doesn't make any change in the look of the bike. I got a black one instead of the clear one, because even if I got the clear one, it doesn't go down enough to show me how much fuel I have in there. So all the plastics go right back on, and so that was kind of a plus with that. Further along, I have on the back, I have a Tusk luggage rack. I'd made my own at one point. I had a do-it-yourself one, and it worked, but it would not stand up to the punishment. I mean, if the bike falls and you bang on this thing, you need a good heavy-duty rack. Plus, I have a set of Moscow Moto luggage, and I need something really solid to attach it to. So the Tusk rack is an absolute must. One of the things I have on here, which I'll move the camera here in a little bit, is I have a Solo Racer tail tidy, which gets that huge tail light assembly off the back of the bike. I would have broken it 4 or 5 times by now, just from dropping the bike. It's just a little tighter. The one disadvantage to it is that when on a muddy day, you're going to get some kickback here. You're going to get mud up there, but who cares? I mean, come on, it's a dirt bike. One of the other things that I've done on the bike is, which you can't see, but is a 12 O'Clock Labs Speedo DRD. And what that is essentially is a very small computer chip. You plug it into the system here to give you accurate speedometer ratings. Now, by doing so, you kind of mess with the odometer, but it bugs me how badly the Yamaha speedometer is off. It's more than just a few percent. It's like 7 or 8%, and that means if you're like 60 miles an hour, you're indicated, you're actually going maybe, 53, 52, 55, something like that. So I've adjusted this so that I've got a true speed on my speedometer. That's my preference. Other people like that as well. Others, they don't really care. And actually, if you didn't really like that and you're using your bike for adventure riding, if you have a GPS, you're going to have accurate speed from there. So it's kind of a personal preference type of thing. But I do ride plenty of times without the GPS, so having the accurate speedometer is kind of important to me. So probably the last thing that I've done here, and I'll have to bring the camera around, is like many other people, I have built a tool tube. One that I use is essentially a welding rod container that I bought from Lowe's. I had it on my other bike and then made a different bracket for it to be on this bike. You'll see that it is at the same angle and position opposite the muffler, which then allows me, when I put my baggage over the top, it sits balanced. It sits away from the bike at the same distance. When I did the Washington Backcountry Discovery route, I had a different tube and different setup, and I actually had to fix it after the first day because it was the bracket that I had made for it was allowing it to push underneath the wheel too much, and it was actually rubbing on the tire. So I had to tear it apart and redo it, which worked for the trip. I got it out of the way, but it's always bugged me, and so I've made a metal bracket. It's not exactly pretty, but like a lot of do-it-yourself type stuff, it's overbuilt and it's very strong. So this one will hold the tools. I actually able to hold more tools this way. I basically have everything with the exception of a pump and spare tubes, which I will carry on the back of the bike or in my backpack or that type of thing. So that is pretty much the modifications that I've made on the bike. Other things that are personal preference. I also replaced the pegs with a little bit wider. That's kind of pretty inconsequential. On the forks, I've got some seal savers to protect the seals from grit and dust getting in there. That's pretty much it. I really like this bike. I know that for other people, they might want something with more horsepower. I find the type of riding I do, especially at my age, I'm 61 as of January 2020. I'm not running a lot of single track. I'm not motocross racing. I'm not looking for a lot of high horsepower. This has excellent suspension right out of the shop for the type of riding that I'm doing, which is essentially fire road, ATV trails, occasional single track. But when I took it on the Wobder and we had a lot of baby head sized rocks, this thing just sucked it up. It was so good, so forgiving for a rider with intermediate dirt skills. I mean, it's not, I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but the bike really did well and allowed me to enjoy the trip without having a lot of get-offs because the suspension was knocking me around a lot. So that's the bike. If you have any comments, add them at the bottom of the video. Be happy to answer them. Thanks.